All right. Well, Lindsay, we are here and getting ready to listen to our interview with Aaron Black, one of our superintendents here in East Central Indiana. And as we get ready to listen to this interview, it's been a little while since we recorded it. Aaron was one of our kind of early adopters, willing to take the leap and let us try out this podcast format. But a lot has changed since the interview with Aaron.
Yeah, education in July and August always has some fun surprises. And Aaron was one of those. He has taken a new position as superintendent at Liberty Perry in still within our service region in Delaware County. So we're excited to continue to work with him. We just wanted to give that little disclaimer before the listen here. Um, we still want to make sure to lift up all of the exciting initiatives at Randolph Eastern. They're still going to be great partners with us and are doing such good work in their school, surrounding community, and really even trailblazers on some things within the state. So didn't want the change to prevent us sharing this great conversation with everyone.
Absolutely. And as Aaron transitioned to Liberty Perry, I know I was really touched by the message that the Randolph Eastern School Board put out just about Aaron's impact and really the legacy that he created at Randolph Eastern. And no doubt that great work will continue under the new superintendent, Neil Adams. Neil has been integral to all of the amazing work at Randolph Eastern up to this point, and he will be transitioning from the assistant superintendent role to the superintendent role. So we will certainly need to also get Neil on the podcast maybe a little later this year for updates in their work. But without further ado, we hope you enjoy this interview with Aaron Black, sharing about exciting things happening at Randolph Eastern School Corporation.
Welcome to the Forge Your Future podcast, brought to you by East Central Educational Service Center, located in Newcastle, Indiana. We proudly provide service, support, and collaboration to 14 counties and 39 member districts.
At ECESC, we believe that students' strengths and interests are a blueprint to forging a future of success and impact, and we are on a journey to provide support and collaboration to schools as they implement career-connected learning for all students.
As part of this mission, we are here today to celebrate the amazing educators who help the students of East Central Indiana dream big dreams and achieve more than they thought possible.
Their work inspires us each day, and we want to lift up their stories and the stories of the students they are impacting and serving. I want to welcome everyone to today's podcast. I am Pat Haney, the Executive Director of East Central Educational Service Center, and our goal each and every time with this podcast is to celebrate the amazing educators from East Central Indiana who help students dream more, believe more, and achieve more than they thought possible. Your work inspires us each day, and we want to lift up your stories and the stories of the students you are impacting and serving each and every day.
I'm Lindsay Lovern with the East Central Educational Service Center, and I'm excited today to introduce our guest for an interview. We have Superintendent Aaron Black from Randolph Eastern School Corporation. He's here to talk about the amazing things that he and his leadership team have been working on and how that's been impacting students across his county and in East Central Indiana. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Aaron, thank you so much for being here. And as we get started, we want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about Randolph Eastern. Give us a little bit of background about your district, where you located, who are your students, and what is your district all about?
Yeah, so I always like to start there. Randolph Eastern is one of the most unique school corporations in many aspects in Indiana, but located right on the Indiana-Ohio line with that. So that makes us unique in the fact that our town is actually split by the state line. So that limits our opportunity for transient students as far as students coming within state to our district. So that's a unique opportunity we have there. Something else unique about Union City, not only geographically, but our makeup is different. As a small rural school in Indiana, I like to share with people, we have a lot of urban opportunities, and that comes with our makeup. Nearly 70% of our students come from poverty, qualify for free and reduced lunch. 42% of our students are Hispanic, and about 27% of our students are English learners. So that's a very different makeup from your typical Indiana rural school, and we celebrate that being different every single day.
I love it. Thanks, Aaron. And then, so there's a lot of great stuff going on in Union City, and so much that you and your team have been working on and developing. So I just want to give you some time to talk about some things that are happening right now that just bring you a sense of pride, and some things going on in Union City that you want to celebrate and share with our listeners.
Oh, I think, there's a lot of things that bring me pride with what our folks do for our students every day. I think we're extremely fortunate to have educators that are on board with truly seeking ways to individualize a student learning experience. And we're doing that in a number of different ways. We have a lot of project-based learning that occurs in our hallways every single day, from our Project Lead the Way experiences, pre-K through 12, to our Leader Me programs, which has a lot of project-based learning that occurs there. Then that travels all the way up through our career exploration that starts in kindergarten. Those students learning about who they are and what they might want to be. And our kids are no different than every other kid in the country. They want to be actors, firefighters, and police officers when they're in kindergarten. So learning about our students in that way, and our teachers trying to learn how to best meet the needs of our students, is probably the thing we celebrate the most. That goes all the way up to our high school, where our students participate in Workforce Wednesday every Wednesday of the year, which is a unique experience. That's a day that we've kind of blown up the typical high school experience, and our kids are engaged in project-based learning, that they are learning skills that our workforce is screaming for and desiring. And again, that whole process of setting up Workforce Wednesday with our high school staff was unbelievably easy. We've had nearly 60 schools visit this year because they're curious about Workforce Wednesday. And the number one question is, how did you get your staff to buy in to this day? And that's why I celebrate our people, because it wasn't a huge sales pitch. It was, we think this is going to be really good for kids. Can we give it a shot, see how it goes? And it has far exceeded our expectations as far as how well it's gone and what we see our students learn. So a lot of things to lift up and celebrate, but I just got to celebrate our people. They're nimble, and you hear educators say that they want to do what's best for kids. And I can tell you, what lies at the heart and the foundation of Randolph Eastern are good educators that truly wake up and are willing to try new things to meet the needs of students.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Because I know that was one of my questions when I first heard about your Workforce Wednesday, was that sounds like something students will love. How's it for everybody else? And so that's so great to hear and know. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that looks like when you said you're blowing up the high school experience with that Workforce Wednesday idea, practically for someone that hasn't been able to see it yet? What's going on with your teachers and students?
Yeah, I think every school in the state at this point has worked through some sort of portrait of the graduate type work. And as you're working through those, I think the best thing to do is talk to stakeholders outside of your school building, which is something we took very serious. And as we're out talking to others, we ask our employers specifically and our parents, what skills do you want your kids to have when they leave your high school, or when they leave our high school? And, being a good communicator rose right to the top. Can they talk to each other? Can they work with people they like and dislike? All those type of things. Can they collaborate with people from different backgrounds? Are they problem solvers? And what does that look like? That doesn't necessarily mean can they solve, math equations, but can they solve conflict or real world problems that they're going to face in the workforce? Are they engaged? Are they resilient? That's a word that has came up quite a bit. And then just being a continuous learner. So just thinking about our portrait of graduate and blowing up the experience for our kids in the sense of, so they don't sit in a 7-period class day where they're going from social studies to science to English to math. On those Workforce Wednesday days, they are signed up to be in truly work-related type courses. We've got a group that has got a goal to raise $1 million to meet the needs of the blight in our local park, which is incredible. You know, that we've got 23 kids that are writing grants, doing public speaking, doing marketing, trying to raise funds through crowdfunding aspects, but they're engaged in the civic responsibility piece too. So that's happening. We've got a farm to table group that is trying to create a system where they create where chickens lay eggs and they have meat birds, those type of things. So yeah, that's happening. That's a whole entrepreneurship group that is kind of organically grown. We've got a group called Senior Smiles that goes out to our local assisted living and just spends time with our elderly folks. And again, that's that whole communication piece. I think our youth get a terrible perspective from older generations because they're on their phones a lot, and they are. I'm not a big proponent of kids being on their phone all the time, but I think we believe that they're not capable of talking to adults face to face. And I can tell you our experience is not that. If you create the opportunity for kids to be in those environments, they're going to succeed, just like we did when we were in school. You figure those things out. So yeah, Workforce Wednesday just looks different. And it's a breath of fresh air for most of our adults and most of our kids. We have some kids that still desire that more academic rigor and don't always see the value in working in these spaces, to be honest with you. But the best part about Workforce Wednesday is our kids are learning so much and they have no idea. They have no idea what experiences they're getting. And to me, that's what learning's all about.
Yeah. So what's been your community response to that? You know, you sought out their advice in building that portrait of a graduate, and then the Workforce Wednesday kind of naturally flowed out of that, sounds like. And so you said students love it, your teachers love it, and that was an easy sell. What about your other stakeholders and folks that maybe, I don't know, did it make anybody nervous to make these changes? What's been the response from outside looking in, parents, all those folks?
Yeah, I would say from the outside looking in, again, you're always going to have some folks that are apprehensive because change is hard no matter what it looks like. And this is a huge change, mind shift change for our folks. But overall, people have just been thrilled. They see how nimble our students can be on Wednesdays. We're a couple of weeks removed for a tornado that went through our community. And one of our opportunities is community service through Workforce Wednesdays. And that afternoon following the tornadoes on a Wednesday, we had 64 kids sign a waiver and volunteer to go pick up trash and metal and help families just kind of put their life back together. We load them up on a yellow bus, but without a mechanism with like Workforce Wednesday, that's just a complete disruption to everything else. So seeing those opportunities and really celebrating that has created a culture where I think our community wants to know why we're not doing more of it.
Yeah. I love it, Aaron. And, obviously that's a huge celebration. I wonder if you might share another specific example of a recent student success that highlights kind of your vision of Workforce Wednesday and for the students in your school corporation.
Yeah, I think we hosted an event the Wednesday before spring break where we had some educators and some members of the Department of Education were here. And we visited our farm to table group, and there were 3 young men sitting in the back, and all other aspects of the school completely disengaged. Students that just do not do well. But you want to know what they were doing. They were creating a script to make phone calls to get sponsors for an event that they're putting together called Carnivore's Playground. So they're doing a barbecue cook-off here in a week and a half. And those three students who honestly, I'm not sure, I'd have to check, probably have only passed 2 or 3 classes in their high school career. They're sophomores and juniors, are excelling in that space. And the again, great pride for me as a superintendent when you're in that room and a member of the Department of Education calls on those 3 young men and say, "Hey, what are you guys working on?" And they immediately perk up, smile, and share what they're doing. And then when they're asked, "Do you like Workforce Wednesday?" they're like, "Yeah, this is so much better than regular school. I feel like I'm actually learning something." And it's not that regular school is not important. That there's some parts of that we need 100%, but it's just getting kids engaged in a different aspect. And was a celebration for me that I was so proud of the educators in the room because they had found a way to excite these 3 young men to do something that I would say all the other teachers would say would be blown away by, just seeing them speak in that realm.
That's awesome. And so you just kind of leaned into something there, Aaron, that I want to call forward a little bit. Is you talked about the work of those educators to create this opportunity. How does Workforce Wednesday also tap into the passions and the interests of your staff and the things that they are able to do as educators that maybe most of us don't have an opportunity to do in a traditional classroom?
Yeah, honestly, that's kind of where when people ask, "How did you get this done with your staff?" It started with that in mind. So what we asked our staff, and this was last May. It's not like we put pitches to our staff a year and a half in advance. It was last May. We're like, "Hey, we just had Passion Project Week. You all knocked it out of the park. Overall, just seemed like a happier place. How do we lean into that, make it more consistent part of our day?" So we started with teachers, list some things that you would be passionate about that you think would create a service-based, project-based learning opportunity for kids. So they presented a list, worked on that this summer. We came back to school, administrative teams met, and we reviewed, all of the things that they said they might be interested in. Kind of went through an application process with those. And by and far, 95% of our teachers got to be in a space that they were passionate about, right? That they want to do to just kind of change up their day. And that, I think, is what created the buy-in from our staff. And now that it has grown and we've seen the possibilities through Workforce Wednesday, now we have our kids giving feedback saying, "Hey, what if we had a course like this?" For instance, we had it's called Sizzle and Spice. It's a group that was born in January from a group of students that said, "Hey, I would love to take a cooking class. Do we have any teachers?" And when we pushed that out, we had a young teacher say, "I love to cook. Can I do that?" And so now we have 20 kids in the Sizzle and Spice class that are creating their own recipes, creating a cookbook and those type of things. So it has morphed into, as it should be, a student voice. But to get the buy-in, we started with the teacher voice. And to be honest with you, those teachers that are in and actively engaged, they will tell you that their spirit, mood, happiness, and all those things that really just drain teachers, it's a nice break from the grind. And I think we're seeing a lot of positivity from our staff on Wednesdays.
Yeah, I think what I love when I hear that is so responsive and so quickly responsive, because I think another path could have been, "Oh, wow, these kids are really interested in cooking. How can we set up a culinary arts pathway? And what boxes would we have to check to make that happen? And do we have the right, teacher for that? And can we oh no, this kid has band, so we can't do, nutrition and band. That's a problem." All of those things that I think sometimes we try and create systems first. And this was just like, sure, let's try it. And now you've given all those students that type of, I was about to say career exploration, which it could be, but it's really future readiness, right? Like everyone should have some kitchen skills. So yeah, I just love that, because that's, I think I hear that a lot, that schools want to elevate student voice and create programs around what students are interested in, but it can be so slow.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so clunky to get there. And so I love that you have this avenue now where, hey, if you are interested in something and we have an opportunity, like, let's do it next semester. I love
Yep.
that.
And that, you called out something I think is important to recognize in the state of Indiana is there's not a seat time requirement for our students to earn a credit in a course. And I say that because it allows us to be a little flexibility, because that's another question is how can you give up that instructional time for a full day on Wednesday? And I could get into all my reasons why our kids are sitting in classes way too long, learning a lot of stuff that is not applicable. That's a whole nother podcast that we'll do in 6 months or so. But it allows us to be really nimble, and it's fun. And that's what our team, that kind of the Workforce Wednesday leadership team, they're excited because in April is when they're going to start surveying students and staff and see what's born. What are people dreaming up next? Because for what's going to happen in April or August is going to be different. There's going to be some that remain the same because they've got great momentum and kids are engaged. And that, like the farm to table, that is a project that will never end. Like there will always be a need to feed that beast, for lack of better words. But there's just going to be some other interesting things that come along, and we're just going to celebrate those and truly live by trying to find ways to best meet the needs of our kids. And to do that, you have to be nimble.
Yeah. And all the things that you're saying your students are taking away from this experience, I think that also shows that instead of, they're losing class time, it's really more additive. They're gaining skills here. They're learning, they're getting an experience that they wouldn't have otherwise. And so I think that it's really flipping your thinking as to what can they get by creating this flexibility versus what are we giving up. So
yeah. And I will tell you again, having 60 plus schools in our building, we've yet to have somebody say this is a waste of time.
Yeah.
That they see educators, and when they're in the hallway and see the kids interacting this way, see the value. And I think other schools are going to try to create mechanisms like that. But I've yet to hear somebody say, hey, you're wasting a day of education.
Mm-hmm. So, Aaron, you said something early in our conversation that I want to tap into is you mentioned starting even in elementary school, that part of your vision for your district is to help students start to tap into and learn about their strengths and their interests and some of their values in terms of like the work their future plans and where they might see themselves in the workforce. So can you talk a little bit about in elementary and middle school, how you are beginning to have students explore those areas and prepare themselves for potential pathways in high school?
Yeah, I think schools, as they should be, are very data driven. And I think some data that we've missed out on for years is really tapping into students' skills, interests, and what their passions are, because that's the mechanism that motivates a kid to want to learn. So that's what we're doing, what we're working on. We are using the RIASEC model, which I know you folks are very familiar with at East Central Service Center here, but it's that's just a tool in order for us and our teachers to get to know our students. It's one thing to have data that piles on that says your students at reading level, below reading level, or data that says where they're at in math, those type of things. That's all important data. But I think once we turn the corner and realize how important it is to know who our kids are and what their passions and interests are and tracking what those are as they grow older, then we can then we can have them start reading about things that they're interested in, not just reading for the sake of reading. I think, again, another soapbox. A lot of kids grow up hating to read because they're forced to read. They're forced to read things that they're just told to read and they don't understand the why. But when they start reading things that they're interested in or passionate about, just like we do, we don't read the encyclopedia. Our younger listeners aren't going to know what encyclopedia is. That's a terrible reference. But we don't just read things that are boring to us. We read things that are interesting to us as adults. And the sooner we learn those things about our kids, I think the better off we're going to be. So we're spending a lot of time trying to figure out that piece and trying to understand the data as it comes through. a year and a half into this process, and every day we get better. Our teachers are getting better, learning to use the tools that they have at their fingertips, but also learning how to celebrate the differences in our students.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, as we've talked about that here at the Service Center, Aaron, like one of the things that I remember hearing Ed Hidalgo talk about is that the first step in is that process is getting adults to start to use that language and even to, create more increase some self-awareness in terms of their skills and interests and passions. I'm curious how that has obviously, with the passion projects, but then also at the elementary and middle school level, how have you engaged educators in becoming more comfortable with that language, maybe some self-awareness, so that then they can have those deeper conversations with students?
That's a great question. Very timely. That is one thing that we've had a little live to learn type situation. So we started with our kids, like really, hey, teachers, we want you to, and we missed on with our elementary, like, hey, maybe our teachers should do these RISEC and get to know who they are and build it out from that perspective. So we kind of regrouped in January, and our elementary administrative team is incredible, but they've regrouped and done some different professional development based on teachers' skills, passions, and interest, and it has completely changed the perspective. So if you're listing, you're like, hey, where do we start? Start with your teachers. Like, have them take a RISEC test, start allowing them to explore, those hobbies and things that they're interested in, and allow that to carry some conversations. Put them in groups with those people that are also R's, realistic people, and allow them to talk through, why am I an R, and those type of things, because that will allow them, assist them in having those conversations when their kids get in those groups. That was a little bit of a miss on our part as we started, but we've regrouped, and I would say anybody that's looking to start with your teachers, like heavy with your teachers, even an entire semester, allowing them to get to know themselves in that world, and then transferring that to their kids.
Yeah. Do you know your RISEC codes?
Yeah. So I'm realistic, which you guys, and shockingly to me is I landed a little more on the, sorry, my phone's ringing, on the, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, shoot. The E.
Oh, enterprising.
Yeah. Enterprising side of things, which was kind of a shocker. But those two were high on my list. And my administrative team says I'm enterprising just because we kind of live in this innovation world where we're always looking to recreate what we're doing. So, yeah, so those are the two areas that I scored the highest in. All the others were actually pretty similar. But it's interesting to take that exam, and I know you guys have done it as well, but it can change a little bit, but your highest ones always remain high. Mm-hmm. Every time I've retaken it to see if anything's changed, those high things have always remained really high. Well, I think we're learning that about our kids, like our artistic kids that love art or music, like that's like through the roof, and it never goes down. Like those are the things that they love. And what a great thing to know about kids, or about even your leadership team. I think about Pat, and just knowing that about Lindsay, like knowing about what excites you in life and what really gets that's huge when you talk about just keeping people engaged and happy. And still word from our friend George Philhauer, just joy, seeking some joy in your life.
Yes. Yeah. My mom is opening a restaurant in Winchester, and I helped her over the weekend with one of her first events.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was fun, but it was like, I was definitely thinking of the RISEC a little bit when I was trying to make change and work the cash register. And I'm like, I don't like touching this money, or like having to think quickly, like I'm not conventional. And so like, quickly making change and all that stuff was like, I can do it. And I'm social, so I'm a helper, and I'm helping my mother, and I'm very glad to be here and doing that in this moment. But also, I am in the right career that I don't have to do box up the cake every day Like I would not be like long-term successful, I don't think. And so, just different things in your life, you can kind of see through that lens and say like, oh, okay, that makes sense why I like this and hate this.
And that's the coolest. That's the coolest thing about career exploration. Like when we take our kids on field trips to Gist Lane, yeah, they make chocolate, but think about all the other jobs that occur in there. Like if you don't like touching money or you don't like people, you probably don't want to be the salesperson. But if you like to cook, so yeah, I think you call out something that's extremely important, that most employment opportunities cover all those things, and you can really find even within one employer your niche. And that's what we try to do with our kids when they go on those trips here.
Love it. So, Aaron, we would definitely be remiss if we did not talk about another very exciting project in your school district and in your community as a whole, and that is everything that is going on in downtown Union City at Vision Corner. So, for our listeners who may not be familiar, first of all, the first thing that everyone needs to do is start listening to the UC Experience podcast and learn all kinds of great things about Vision Corner. But for those who maybe haven't been listeners and subscribers to the UC Experience, can you tell us what's happening in Vision Corner and give us a quick history of that space?
Yeah, great shout out to the UC Experience. I think it's by far one of the best podcasts on Spotify, but I say that with a lot of humbleness, of course. Yeah. So Vision.
I think I'm hearing a little enterprising in there. Just saying.
So Vision Corner, it's what an interesting journey. So our Mayor Chad Spence, is a very innovative, visionary person, and when he got elected into the office, there was two things that he said, these are non-negotiables. Here's what I'm putting my focus on. It was the downtown corridor and housing, which two great things to focus on. And in too many small rural towns, you see what I've learned to call missing teeth, and that's buildings that have just been falling apart and they get torn down, and then you have a gap. So they're like missing teeth, and it doesn't look good for a downtown corridor. 2019, the building that is now Vision Corner came up for sale, and that's right at the time that Mayor Spence came into office. The city purchased that building for next to nothing just to save it, because again, thinking historically, when your cornerstone buildings go down, it's really not too long before the rest of the buildings on that street that fall. So the corner sits right on the corner of Pearl and Columbia Street. It's a big building. It was an apothecary shop for many, many years, closed in the late 90s and just kind of sat empty. So the city had an opportunity to buy it. And when they bought it, the mayor came to me. It was late 2019. I had just gotten this job in January 2019 and said, hey, here's my thoughts on Vision Corner. The one really, really good thing we have going here is our school corporation. You guys do some great things. How can we highlight you? And we quickly landed on KISS TV, which was the first TV broadcasting, student-ran TV broadcasting system in the state of Indiana, and one of the first in the country, and Apache Design, which was a school-based enterprise where we print T-shirts, those type of things. How do we get them downtown to highlight? So that's where the conversation started, and then it's kind of grown from there. We went from just redoing the first floor in the midst of COVID to deciding that we have a lot of students that are interested in the healthcare pathway. We do not have space at the school to do that. Could the second floor become space for a healthcare pathway? So that's how Vision Corner Learning Center was born. It was born through a conversation, a bold move by a mayor to purchase a building in the midst of COVID. One of the feathers in their hat, they actually opened 8 businesses downtown during COVID, which is pretty incredible.
Wow.
When other communities were shutting down, our community was coming together at that time. So Vision Corner's main purpose was to highlight the school and the students, and it has blossomed into something pretty incredible. It's going to have a state-of-the-art TV studio in it, which if you haven't seen lately, it's pretty outstanding. Our Apache Design, which is our screen printing business, is printing hats, t-shirts, mugs, signs, all those things as we speak right now. So that the great thing about that is they now actually have a storefront where people can walk in and buy merchandise and place orders, which they'd never really had before. It was kind of difficult to get orders through to our student-based enterprise because there was no good avenue for a visitor to come in and place an order. So those things are there. And then the upstairs, the healthcare pathway, thrilled by that. Ivy Tech, Chad Bowles at Ivy Tech Richmond has been a huge partner in helping us design and create that space. And then our other partner, Reed Health, Jason Troutwine at Reed Health has been a huge partner to help us design an experience that I think is going to be unrivaled in East Central Indiana when it comes to healthcare experience. And for us, it's just extremely important because you guys know the data. We live in a healthcare desert. One of the saddest things I've ever heard was when your predecessor in the job, Pat, said to me, the last place you want to have a heart attack is Randolph County because we don't have people that can take care of you. So when you got that data, knowing that we need healthcare in East Central Indiana, with the data that our students are interested in healthcare pathways, it was just kind of an easy that we need to go after this and make it happen. So a lot of grant dollars, Ready Grant was big in this, rural development grants, Next Gen SIG grant through the Indiana Department of Education has all helped fund this project. But it's really unique. It's kind of a community college experience right here in little old Union City. So I'm very, very proud of that work and excited about next week.
Yeah, what's next week?
Next week is the ribbon cutting. It's the big day. So project started in late 2020, with COVID. We started the demo work, and here we are 4 years later, and we're going to have the ribbon cutting for Vision Corner. That's next Friday, April 12th. Ribbon cutting's at 10 o'clock. I encourage everybody to come. It's reason to celebrate education. It's reason to celebrate collaboration. I think it kind of exudes everything that the American spirit should be about. So that ribbon cutting's from 10 to 11:30. We're going to break for lunch. Then following that lunch, we actually have our first ever student pitch competition where our Workforce Wednesday groups are pitching for money for their projects. And we have $30,000 on the line. So first place is going to earn $20,000 and then $5,000 to second, third place. So it's a big day for us, but it's just a historical moment. Just the history of saving a building that meant so much to this community in the 1800s, and now seeing how it's been being repurposed into a state-of-the-art educational facility is pretty awesome.
Absolutely. And also it's exciting that it's not only going to be available to the students of Union City, but also to kind of highlight another podcast that you appeared on recently, Building Momentum with Sarah Williamson and Chad Bolzer. You were also on there talking about RAS 32. Maybe could you give our listeners maybe a high level perspective on what RAS 32 is and how that is going to impact opportunities for your students?
Yeah, I think it's RAS 32 is born out of the why that no students' access to education should be dictated by their zip code. Those have heard me say that 1,000 times, and I really try to live by that. I serve as the superintendent at Randolph Eastern, but I really serve all students that I can have an impact on, and I really wake up every day trying to do that. So RAS 32 is collaboration between us, Winchester Community Schools, and Monroe Central Schools, where we've agreed by a memorandum of understanding that's really hard to break down by boards, to where our students have access to each other's CTE programming. So our students can free flow over to Randolph Central, to Winchester Community High School, to their welding, precision machining classes without really any interference. Same, they can go to Monroe Central to their early childhood or some of their computer science courses, or they've got a really cool precision ag pathway that they're opening up for students. So, and then vice versa, their students can come our direction to be a part of KISS TV or healthcare pathway, Apache Design, any of those courses. So it's really RAS 32 is just kind of us putting money where our mouth is, that we want to serve all kids, that it's okay to be rivals on Friday night when we're on the court or on the field, those type of things. But during the school day, we should really be doing what's best for all kids. And I think RAS 32 is just that.
Yeah. Yeah. When you talk about, that group and Vision Corner as well, especially Vision Corner, for at risk of being a little like mushy, I don't know. The word that kept coming to mind was hope, because, also being from the county and recognizing that, the demographic is not overall not young. The fact that, your mayor came in and said, we want to highlight the future, and that folks are going to be able to walk by and see through the glass the future of the community, learning and growing and doing great things. I think that's not always a mindset that is popular. You talked about earlier that some folks, kind of roll their eyes at the next generation or think, certain things about them that aren't always positive. But it doesn't really matter what you think about them. They're the future. That's what's coming. And so we need to be supporting and celebrating. And so and that's the hope, right? Like that is our next generation. And so, it's just really, really exciting and inspiring. So thanks for sharing all of that.
No, it's pretty exciting. It's fun to be a part of. And, one of the saddest statistics in Randolph County is the goal that in 2030 that we wanted to stop population decline. Yeah. And that's one of the things that enrages me. Like, we should be wanting to be growing by 2030. That's a long way from now. We should be growing tomorrow. And doing things like this, I think, helps create that. And, Lindsay used the word hope, but I will celebrate and probably be emotional the first time a student earns that healthcare certificate, that CCMA. Like, that's a big deal when they earn that from that space. But the win for me is going to be when we have an adult take those classes and earn that CCMA. That's how you break the mold of poverty and break the mold of hopelessness, is through education. And the day that we see an adult come back to school and earn a certificate in that space, that is the day that I think we'll really celebrate success.
Absolutely. So for all of our listeners, first thing we do is go over and subscribe to the UC Experience. They also need to go check out Superintendent Aaron Black on the Building Momentum podcast. And then need to make sure everybody comes out to the Vision Corner grand opening happening next week. The bulk of the events being on Friday, April the 12th. Aaron, you want to talk real quickly? You want to share any other little tidbits about what our listeners might be able to experience if they come to Union City next Friday, April 12th?
Well, you'll get to see, first of all, you get a sense of the energy that comes from our mayor, which is just kind of contagious. He's a great man, just very passionate about our community, and just wants, we'll lean into that word hope that Lindsay shared, just wants to provide hope for our community. So you'll get to experience that, but you'll get to walk the space and get to collaborate with other folks. And my hope is that you would take something home with you and say, how can we not do this? You don't want to do the same thing we're doing in your community, but what does Vision Corners look like in other communities across the state of Indiana? Because we all know that in East Central Indiana in particular, there are some communities that could use some hope. And I think just coming to this with an open mind, saying, how could we get this done through collaboration in our space, would be the thing to do next Friday.
And also get some good barbecue, right?
Yeah, so you're going to eat well. There's no doubt. We always check that box.
Love it.
I love it.
All right, we do need to wrap up here. I'm pretty sure I sent you a 30-minute calendar invite, so that was a mistake.
That's fine.
But we do want to ask as we wrap up, what are you recommending right now? Tell us something that is new for you that you would share with your friends. Can be professional, can be personal.
The one thing that I think, so coming off some tough situations in Randolph County with some student deaths, and just the tornado, those type of things, that don't lean into others for help. I think knowing when you need help is critical, and I'd say that to the leaders. I shared that with our superintendent study council last week, but also take care of yourself. Like, do those things that fill your cup and don't feel bad about it. And being a leader in me school, we talk about sharpening your saw. Like, whatever that looks like for you, do it. Whether that's working out, walking your dog, going to dinner with your wife, playing with your kids, just do that and don't feel guilty about it. I think that is the best advice I can give, because life is hard right now. It is really hard for a lot of people. And I think we've just lost a sense of taking care of ourselves and leaning into what's important to us. And I think a lot of times people do that and then they feel guilty for taking time. And that is the absolutely backward mindset to sharpening your saw.
Awesome. All right. So we got our homework, UC experience, follow UC experience, visit Vision Corner, and sharpen your saw. You heard it here.
That's right.
All right.
Aaron Black, we want to thank you for joining us on our podcast today. And each time we bring this to you, our goal is to celebrate the amazing educators of East Central Indiana who help students dream more, believe more, and achieve more than they thought possible. Aaron, we thank you for everything that you are doing in Union City and in East Central Indiana. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening to the Forge Your Future podcast. We hope that this glimpse into the bright future of East Central Indiana inspires you and brings you hope.
We have the privilege to work with these future makers every day and want to share their stories throughout Indiana and beyond.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, please share it with your circle and let's keep the conversation going.
You can connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and on our website.
Until next time, remember that your strengths and interests are a blueprint to your future of success and impact.